Right, I'm going to have another go at last night's painting. It might be interesting just to try putting some wiggly yellow lines and a green background. So the idea is going to be, actually they'll probably be wiggly, very yellowy green, but I'll put the yellow lines down first, then cover them with masking fluid, and then try and put down a green wash. So I'll variegate the green wash so that it's a bluish green towards the top of the range of hills, and then greener green in the middle, and maybe try and put some dark down in the very foreground. Whether I'll put in the house that's in last night's painting or not, I don't know. So here goes with the yellow lines. And I might obliterate the yellow on the edges of these back hills, but the more foreground hills will have more of this yellowy green edge to them. So one of the things I was able to do in last night's painting was to have hard edges at the tops of the sun-kissed tops of the hills and blend in the green from below, which I won't be able to do with the masking fluid technique, because it always produces hard edges, and if you want to make them soft, well, you have to do that yourself. I might just move this back a bit and put cross these over. Just get a bit more complexity in this area. Alright, so that's the first phase done. Now, so just sit around and wait till it dries, and then try and put on a wash of green. Okay, so we've applied yellow, greeny yellow, spring green, whatever you want to call it, on the tops of the hills, and now it's a case of trying to produce a green wash over this with some variation from top to bottom. So we'll go for deep green here, medium green, and bluey colours, maybe even with the addition of some red later on, I don't know, to make the hills a bit purple. So, well, let's go for the medium green first of all. So we'll wet the entire area. Picking up some of the yellow pigment that's already there, of course, at this stage, which is not a problem because, of course, that's going to contribute to the green. a darker green down at the bottom, more shaded area, so we've got that down at the bottom. And I'm using the other side of the paper this time, because I didn't like the very patterned effect that appeared when I sanded the paper yesterday to try and lighten up the clouds. So this side of the paper is more random in its patterning. And if I have to do some sanding, well, that should if I have to do some sanding, I shouldn't end up with a bunch of pattern spots on the painting. Alright, so what I'm doing now is using the fact that the masking fluid creates little dams on the paper, and the colour that I'm applying at the moment shouldn't cross that dam or cross those dams. So I can apply a little bit of darker paint in the towards the bottoms of the valleys, as it were, without worrying that they'll cross into the top of the next section. And let's darken the foreground a bit more. And maybe even up into this hill here. So this is wet in wet, but it's not attempting to cover the entire area with paint. A bit of brush variation to creep in. And let's darken up here and over here. Very artificial way of trying to direct the attention towards the middle of the painting, but should. The brush is separating more than I want it to. Try and bring the bristles together again by applying a bit of water, hopefully without diluting the paint too much, although it does seem to have lost a certain amount of its pigmentation. So dark hills at the top, dark foreground, middle ground hills, not too dark, but let's just add a bit more darkening around the lower areas. I kind of want that to spread a bit more, but I can't really do it without adding more water. So I'll just leave it for the moment, I think. And I'll try adding in a bit of purple to that distant area. So it's going to go very dark because of course I've already got one layer of pigment there. And of course I don't want to paint around the area and then leave brush strokes that make it clear that I've painted around the area. So try to even out the application of paint over this area rather than leaving little halos of paint. And go over and do the other side with a bit of a purple colour as well. This is not going to work out at all, is it? So let's see if we can destroy the entire painting by putting a whole lot more water on it. We need to darken that now, don't we? It's like trying to trim a moustache, so it's even on both sides. Take a bit off here, take a bit off there, and a bit on the other side, and you end up with no moustache at all. Or in this case, no painting at all. No light colours on your paper. So that's kind of the sort of effect I was after. So let's just let that dry and see what happens. That's going to end up being lighter than I wanted it to. Can't probably do a great deal about it. Interest into the foreground by making some sort of a river valley. So in the previous painting I had a house with a roof that was shaped like an arrow to bring the user's eye into the picture. Here we'll just use this wiggly line at the front to do the same sort of thing. We've got a sort of line going there. I wonder if I can just bring something up there to take the viewer's eye up into the picture a bit more. So maybe just try and lift some of the colour there. Pull the eye up, I hope, following that. That edge. maybe a little bit of the same going down here. I really should try and block it off there, but I'm not sure that I can. Let's just add a bit of darker paint in there. More of this worked, I think. And darken this down here so that it's not pulling the eye out of the painting. And maybe up, I don't know. Don't mess around too much with it. Alright, that's a fairly different approach to painting the same scene. I have to do the sky yet. I don't think I'll be doing quite the same sky as I did last time, but just let that dry. Right, well that's all dried, and I think we need a bit of variation in this area here. So I'm just going to try darkening down the bottom, and I might try darkening down the bottom of this area as well. So let's put some water on those two areas, and then see how it's picking up the pigment. Then we can go back and add a bit of, maybe down there as well. Otherwise it's going to look lighter. So now we can darken. That to be wet, so that the pigment didn't form a hard line. There we are. And similarly here, we don't want that to form a, well, I don't, maybe you do. I want that to form a hard line. Maybe a bit of dark up to there. Similarly. Alright, leave that again to, let's go to leave it at that point to dry. Alright, well that seems to be moving in the right direction. I've let that dry, and this does seem to give a general feeling of lightness over there. I'm going to, something I meant to do before and I forgot, just clean out some of this pigment in this area down here, which may end up making it look a bit like a stream, but that's fine. Because I still want this area to lead the eye into the painting. let's lighten that up a bit. There you go. So that's all right. And I looked at this from a distance and thought, do I want to soften these edges down the bottoms of the yellow lines? I thought that they'd end up being very hard edged shapes, and I mean they are, but it's not necessarily a terribly bad thing. I'll just do some of them, I think, rather than do them all. So for example, that over there I think is too harsh. I'll try and knock it back a bit, and I don't really want a much in the way of a yellow edge up there, or a green edge up there. So we'll just bring some of the pigment up from the hill below it. So I'm just using a brush that has a little bit of water in it to soften those edges just a little bit. While still retaining the overall feel. Maybe that as well. Get a bit more water on the brush. So I think that's probably as much as I'll do. In that region. And now we need to turn our attention to the sky. So I don't know that I want to do the same sky that I did last time. I think the clouds were a bit distracting, but I also don't want a purely blue sky, so we're going to have clouds again. They just won't be the same clouds as last time. So I won't use the sort of wash technique that I've used down at the bottom of the painting. But I will. Oh, I think I might go and wash this brush out. I'm not sure what colour it's going to put in the sky. I don't really want it to be too dark, so I'll go and clean the brush out, come back and do some more painting. Right then, now with a newly cleaned brush I can add some blue into the sky. So we've wet the paper in various little splashy places, and I've put some. I'll try doing this, but it's not wanting to work. Oh, there we go. Spatter. Don't know whether that's going to. No, I don't think it'll work as a way of producing a sky. This is alright though, allowing blue to seep into places where there is water on the paper, although what's happening at the moment is that the water on the paper is causing it to buckle, so we're getting a valley down there and a mountain on the paper, so we're getting a big pool of water forming down there that I need to keep an eye on, so that it doesn't form a deep layer of blue, or stream of blue running up there. So we get quite nice cloud shapes by doing this, by brushing blue in and around splots of water on the paper. I might just move that down because it doesn't look very realistic having solid blue sky on one side of the hill and none on the other side. Now see how that's the water's accumulated in there? Try and deal with that. Just allow it to wander around a little bit. And one of the things you can do is just to keep on doing this until the water dries away entirely, because you're sort of spreading it over a larger area, so it's got a larger area to evaporate from. But you've got to be very patient to do that, and as I may have stated on occasions before, I'm not a very patient painter. Don't like that shape there. What I'm doing at the moment is there's a big pool of water here, and I'm just trying to let it go through that little gap. So I can move it all up toward, let's see if we can get it to go up there as well. There we are. That's got rid of it, and let's try and get rid of that as well. So that's cleaned up a good deal of our puddle, and we let the water come off the paper. Now of course we've got a streak in the sky, which I don't particularly want, so we'll deal with that as well by letting the water sneak back and forth across that area, and try and clean up that spot. Alright, drying time I think. Just let that dry and then see whether we want to, how much we want to put in way of shadows in the clouds. Come back. Alright, the sky has dried significantly lighter, as watercolour paint does in general, as the pigment particles settle in amongst the matrix of fibres that make up the paper. I just had a thought. Now I think the idea, or the next thing to do, is going to be to try and find some natural looking shadows. What I'm doing at the moment is just dulling this yellowy green area down, because at the moment I think it's taking the eye away from the direction that I particularly want the eye to follow, which is more up in that direction. So we'll just, with a damp brush, bring in some of the hill colour onto that line. Now, I think it's time to find some shadows in those clouds. Colour in the brush at the moment is just whatever colour I picked up when I was dabbing water onto the hills. So it's green. Clouds with green shadows. Oh well. And put a bit of red in. It is, after all, sunset, isn't it? Maybe if I maybe if I go for orange, get more of that sunsetty feeling, and then the deeper shadows can be just dark. And use the other side of the brush just to feather out some of those hard-edged sections with that very pale colour that I had in the brush before, which was a sort of last remnants of green that I'd picked up. So we don't want to have the clouds completely white with coloured bits in them. Move the, well, not move the colour around, but to give it softer edges. I think this is maybe evaluation time. I'll get back to you and tell you what I think.